Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, you've got me thinking about Chuck Woolery now because you did the 2-and-2 thing right before we hit record. So now I'm completely in 80s TV brain mode, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull it back together. But I'm going to do my very best as a college football media professional to tell everyone about a significant departure the Buckeyes suffered. Max Klare, tight end, heading to the NFL draft. Not a total surprise here, especially when you look at what Ohio State has done in the transfer portal over the last week. That felt a little bit like a tip-off that this may have been coming.
Yeah, that was my first clue when Ohio State went and grabbed a second tight end. Then I was like, I just wonder. And clearly Max Klare came to Ohio State to, as he said, improve his all-around game as a tight end, in which to help him with the NFL. And after 1 year, feels like he's ready. I do wonder if there is some weighing of the portal versus the NFL and that sort of thing. When you look at the draft rankings from the gurus, he's a top five tight end in this draft. He was a all Big Ten guy with Kenyon Sadiq, but he was 43 catches for the Buckeyes this year, just 2 off of the school record tying all time held by Cade Stover. And he was very productive. I think, Tom, was he I don't want to say underwhelming. I think it took him a while at Ohio State to hit his groove. But then once he did well. And then once Carnell Tate was healthy again, it's almost like he becomes invisible to Julian Sands. Like Julian Sands would only look at him when he didn't have 2 healthy outside receivers.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that you look at his numbers this year and think, well, I mean, they were good, but were they amazing? And I think a lot of that traces back to his numbers at Purdue a year before, when his quarterback never had the problem of, well, Carnell Tate's out there and Jeremiah Smith's out there, so I don't need to look in Max Klare's way. At Purdue, he was almost the receiving threat number 1 for them for a good bit of that 2024 season and finished with 51 catches, 685 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I remember us looking at those numbers and doing an over-under show before the season. It was like, man, he's going to be good. He's going to be an impact player for Ohio State on offense, and he certainly was. But also, when you've got the kind of talent around you that you do at Ohio State, it's hard to get, to be early enough in the progression, often enough to put up those kind of numbers. I think you kind of have to use the Ohio State tight end barometer, which is basically, John Frank and then Cade Stover, and everyone else is, everyone else is sort of below that. And he feels like he's in that really top group with those 2 guys in terms of the productivity you got out of him, and only 2 touchdowns. But on the whole, it feels like that's a year that he probably could have done more, but I don't know that it was on him that he didn't do more. It felt like, and I do think we need to shout out, you talked about him becoming a more well-rounded prospect. I think we do need to sort of shout him out for the blocking was not exemplary at the beginning of the year, and it got substantially better. It felt like over the course of the year. I think that may be, that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but I think that's one of those areas where he really grew as a player and is probably a better NFL draft prospect now than he would have been a year ago.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And, certainly very impactful this year. Maybe could have done more if he had been given a chance. Still, 3rd on the team in receptions, 3rd on the team in receiving yards. The only game this year where he didn't have a catch was the Miami game. And it's like, well, he lost that game, and he had 2 catches for 28 yards against Indiana. But generally, like, he had that stretch when Carnell Tate was out where he had 5 catches, 7 catches, and that Rutgers game was 7 for 105. That was the first 100-yard game for an Ohio State tight end since 2013. So yes, he had his impact at Ohio State. But then I don't know what his price tag was, but you wondered, does Ohio State need to pay that much for this kind of production? And I think the answer is probably no. They did it this time just to They had it. Let's see how things go. They wanted a second tight end with experience, and they got that. They had a really good combination with Will Kazmarek and Max Klare. And so I don't think you should feel like, I don't think Ohio State fans should feel like, boy, did you get enough out of him? I think you got what I think there's more to give. I think he would say that, but that's not up to him. He runs the routes, he does the blocking, and if the ball finds him, it finds him. And now he is off to the NFL. And Tom, as we started out with the show, they've gone to pretty good lengths to replace these two guys. And I talked about Will Kazmarek and Max Klare. They're both going to be in the NFL next year. This will be we've seen other duos go off to the NFL in terms of tight end duos, but when it was Luke Farrell and Jake Hausman, Luke Farrell was drafted. Hausman was a unrestricted, undrafted free agent. I think both of these guys are going to end up being drafted, and we'll see where they go. But Ohio State, of course, goes and gets Mason Williams from Ohio to replace the Ohioan. It's the only way you can do it. And then, although Max Klare is also an Ohioan, but and then you go get Hunter Welsing from Northwestern, because if you're going to lose one former Big Ten tight end, you've got to replace him again with a former Big Ten tight end. So I don't know that that duo is going to be as good as this year's duo, but I don't know if they have to be. I mean, it would be nice, but I don't think that it's a huge drop off, but we'll see.
Right. And, I think if you polled Ohio State fans in the middle of the season and said, are you seeing not enough of the tight ends or too much of the tight ends? I don't think that not enough of the tight ends would have polled particularly well. So, they don't need to have, this is not a tight end centric offense. This is not Iowa. This is not some of the Michigan teams of the past. This is a team that is going to, you got to run the ball. Yeah, you got to be able to block in the running game. You got to have pass pro. And you can probably think of recent examples where that has come up for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But this is not an offense that's going to run through the tight end. You need to have solid, competent, experienced tight ends. They've got that now. And you've also got Bennett Christian coming back. You've also got Nate Roberts coming back. They lost Jelani Thurman in the portal, so you've lost 3 of your kind of 5 contributing tight ends from last season, but that's okay. You've got 4 veteran guys coming back who have the experience, have the ability to contribute in both the passing game and in the blocking portion of the game. The tight end, I don't think, should be a concern for anyone with the Ohio State team. This is just they'll do what they need to do. And, if this is not as tight end centric an offense as it was last year, I don't know that anyone's really going to be complaining about that.
So there you go. Max Klare off to the NFL, and Ohio State will have to recover, and they've certainly attempted to do that. So if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. 5-star rating and reviews, all that appreciated. That will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.